3:47 a.m. The Persian Gulf. Under a moonless sky, the metallic clang of grappling hooks biting into steel tiers through the pre-dawn silence. The USS Porter, a $1.8 billion Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, sits vulnerable in international waters. 60 Iranian Revolutionary Guard commandos have just completed what Tehran calls the perfect infiltration. They believe they've captured the crown jewel of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. They believe American sailors are soft, slow, unprepared. They believe in 60 seconds of glory before the world's cameras. But there is one fatal miscalculation they overlooked. The USS Porter is not alone. Just 18 nautical miles away, the USS Bataan amphibious assault ship carries 240 U.S. Marines, men who eat nails for breakfast and turn enemy arrogance into obituaries before lunch. What you are about to witness is not a hostage rescue. It is a 26-minute educational slaughter. The Iranians thought they were staging a propaganda coup. Instead, they signed their own death warrants in ink made of seawater and gunpowder. 60 commandos climbed aboard. 0 will ever see Tehran again. And the 22 fast attack boats that brought them? They're about to become artificial reefs at the bottom of the Gulf. Welcome to Operation Steel Vengeance. Do not blink. Do not look away. Because in the next 26 minutes, you will learn why touching an American warship is the fastest way to get deleted from existence. Before we dive into the details, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. Now, let's get to it. Everyone thinks that 60 elite commandos boarding a destroyer under cover of darkness is a tactical masterpiece. They're dead wrong. What looks like a brilliant surprise attack is actually a collective suicide mission wrapped in delusion and soaked in arrogance. Here's what the world doesn't understand. The moment you step onto the deck of a U.S. Navy warship, you haven't captured anything. You've entered a steel coffin with 360 degrees of American fury closing in. The Iranian High Command spent months planning Operation Persian Talon. They studied satellite images. They practiced rope climbing on mock-ups. They convinced themselves that American sailors were tech-dependent weaklings who couldn't fight without drones and missiles. A catastrophic miscalculation. What they didn't account for was the single most terrifying variable in modern naval warfare: the United States Marine Corps response time. While Tehran dreamed of parading captured American sailors on state television, the U.S. Fifth Fleet had already activated the most brutal rescue protocol in military history. The Iranians thought they were hunters. They were actually rats crawling into a hydraulic press. Arrogance doesn't just blind, it kills. And in 26 minutes, the Persian Gulf will serve as a classroom for the most expensive lesson in modern military stupidity. Here is the central question that will haunt Iranian war planners for generations. Can 60 Revolutionary Guard commandos hold an American destroyer against 240 United States Marines backed by the full firepower of a carrier strike group? Spoiler alert, absolutely not. Not for 26 minutes. Not for 26 seconds if the Marines decide to stop being polite. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down the physics of ship-to-ship combat: distance, firepower, response time. The three-layer Marine counterboarding doctrine: isolate, overwhelm, annihilate. The engineering behind the AH-1Z Viper and MV-22 Osprey, airborne death delivery. The math that turned 22 Iranian boats into underwater scrap metal. Hellfire missiles plus naval strike missiles equals 0 survivors. This is not theory. This is a war-gamed surgical extraction backed by decades of Marine Corps doctrine and billions of dollars in lethal hardware. Hit that like button if you want to see arrogance meet absolute firepower. Drop a comment with your country. And buckle up, because Steel Vengeance is about to teach the world what happens when you touch the dragon's tail. To understand why 60 Iranian commandos ended their lives at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, we need to rewind the clock 96 hours, inside a fortified bunker in Bandar Abbas, Iran. The planners of Operation Persian Talon are toasting with smugness so thick you could cut it with a bayonet. General Reza Khalil, the architect of this disaster, presents his masterpiece to the Supreme Council. The objective: capture the USS Porter. Hold it for 30 minutes. Extract with American hostages. Humiliate the United States on the global stage. The method: 22 fast attack boats disguised as fishing vessels, each carrying armed commandos and concealed RPGs. Approach in darkness. Board silently. Neutralize the 30-man crew. Lock down the bridge. Broadcast footage worldwide before the Americans can react. The delusion: that the U.S. Fifth Fleet would negotiate, that Marines would hesitate, that the world would stand paralyzed. Let's examine the constraints, the cold, brutal physics they ignored. First, detection range. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers AN/SPY-1D radar can track a speedboat from 50 nautical miles away. The Iranians believed that by moving slowly and blending with fishing traffic, they'd remain invisible. Laughable. Every boat was tagged the moment it left port. Second, response time. The USS Baton, carrying a full Marine Expeditionary Unit, was positioned 18 nautical miles away, a deliberate trap. MV-22 Ospreys can cover that distance in under 8 minutes. The Iranians calculated 45 minutes before U.S. forces could mobilize. They were off by 37 minutes. Fatal error. Third, firepower disparity. 60 commandos with AK-103s and RPG-7s versus 240. Marines with M4A1 rifles, M27I-ARs, Javelin missiles, and close air support from AH-1Z Vipers. This isn't asymmetric warfare. It's a mismatch so grotesque it belongs in a comedy sketch. Fourth, naval geometry. The Persian Gulf is a bathtub. There is nowhere to run. The Iranians thought they'd use the congested waters as cover for retreat. But when U.S. naval strike missiles start flying, congested waters just means a higher body count per missile. The Iranians spent 3 months preparing. They trained their elite commandos in ship assault tactics on rusted hulks in the Caspian Sea. They rehearsed radio silence protocols. They even practiced mock hostage negotiations with actors playing weak-willed American diplomats. What they didn't practice: fighting 240 Marines in close quarters, combat while AH-1Z Vipers turn their escape boats into floating crematoriums. The plan was perfect on paper. In reality, it was a pre-written obituary for 60 poor souls who believed their own propaganda. Arrogance had blinded reason, and now the steel trap was about to snap shut with the force of a collapsing star. Let's simplify the coming massacre into a 3-layer Marine doctrine framework, the mental cheat sheet that turns chaos into calculated annihilation. Layer 1. Isolate the threat. The moment the Iranian commandos board the USS Porter, they are no longer attackers. They are trapped rats in a steel maze. U.S. Navy protocol: immediately seal all bulkhead doors. Lock down the bridge, engine room, and combat information center. The Iranians control maybe 15% of the ship's deck space. Useless real estate with zero tactical value. They're standing exposed under the open sky with nowhere to hide. This is the kill zone. Layer 2. Overwhelming force insertion. Within 8 minutes, 4 MV-22 Ospreys carrying 60 Marines per aircraft arrive overhead. They don't negotiate. They don't announce. They fast rope onto the deck in a coordinated blitz. 240 warfighters descending like the wrath of God. Simultaneously, AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters establish air dominance. Their 20mm Gatling cannons and Hellfire missiles locked onto every Iranian boat within a 10-mile radius. The Iranians are now fighting a two-front war: Marines above, naval firepower erasing their retreat below. Layer 3. Total annihilation. Marines don't do proportional response. They execute a room-clearing massacre with surgical precision. Every Iranian commando is neutralized, not arrested, not detained, deleted. The 22 fast attack boats, engaged by naval strike missiles and Hellfire volleys. 22 boats, 22 fireballs, 0 survivors. This is not rescue, this is extermination with paperwork filed afterward. The Iranian High Command thought they were playing checkers. The Marines were playing thermonuclear chess, and they'd already calculated checkmate before the Iranians even moved their first piece. 3:47 a.m. The boarding begins. 60 Iranian commandos swarm the deck of the USS Porter like ants on a sleeping giant. They fire AK-103 bursts into the superstructure. They scream into radios declaring victory. They thought, we control the deck, we control the ship. The hidden layer. You control nothing but 200 square meters of steel, and you're standing in the world's most lethal shooting gallery. 3:49 a.m. The trap activates. Captain Hayes, commanding officer of the USS Porter, calmly initiates lockdown protocol Zulu 9. Every hatch slams shut. The Iranians are sealed topside, no access to engines, weapons, navigation. Simultaneously, an encrypted flash message hits CENTCOM. Boarders engaged, request immediate QRF, quick reaction force authorized. Steel Vengeance is live. They thought, the Americans will panic. The hidden layer, the Americans were waiting for you to make this exact mistake. 3:51 a.m. The Eagles launch. Aboard the USS Baton, 18 miles north, organized chaos erupts. 4 MV-22 Ospreys roar to life, rotors slicing the humid Gulf air. Each Osprey carries 60 Marines, brick-hard men with dead eyes and fully loaded M4A1 carbines. Following close behind, 2 AH-1Z, Viper attack helicopters, bristling with 20mm cannons, Hellfire missiles, and enough ordnance to level a small city. Flight time to target, 7 minutes, 40 seconds. The Iranians, busy trying to breach sealed doors with crowbars and C4, have no idea the sky is about to rain hell. They thought, we have 30 minutes before reinforcements. The hidden layer, you have 7 minutes before extinction. 3:55 a.m. The Vipers arrive first. 2 AH-1Z gunships scream over the horizon at 180 knots. Their thermal optics paint every Iranian boat in glowing, white-hot detail. Weapons free. A GM-114. Hellfire missiles streak downward. Boom, boom, boom. 6 Iranian fast boats erupt into towering fireballs. Flaming debris rains onto the water. Survivors leap overboard, but the Persian Gulf offers no mercy, only sharks and burning oil. The remaining 16 boats scatter like roaches under a floodlight, engines screaming. But there is no escape. The Viper's 20mm Gatling cannons open up. A metallic roar that liquefies fiberglass and flesh alike. They thought, our boats are fast and maneuverable. The hidden layer, a Hellfire missile travels at Mach 1.3. You are slow-motion target practice. 3:59 a.m. The Ospreys deploy. 4 MV-22s hover over the USS Porter's deck, rotors blasting hurricane-force winds. Fast ropes drop, and then 240 Marines descend like avenging angels. No bullhorn warnings, no surrender demands. Only the cold, mechanical efficiency of America's most elite killers. The Iranians, realizing their nightmare, open fire. A K rounds ping harmlessly off Marine body armor. In response, suppressed M4 bursts and M27 automatic rifle fire shred through cheap Iranian vests like wet paper. Sector Alpha, forward deck. 20 Iranians try to form a defensive line. Futile. Marines flank from 3 directions. They're using the ship's superstructure for cover. Grenades arc through the air. Flashbangs. Frag grenades, smoke. Within 90 seconds, all 20 hostiles are down. Sector Bravo, mid-deck. 15 Iranians attempt to use seized crew members as human shields. A Marine sniper from an Osprey doorway, 200 meters out, places a .300 Winchester Magnum round through the skull of the lead captor. Precision. Coldness. The other Marines storm in. Close quarters battle at its deadliest. 4 minutes later, every hostile neutralized. Every crew member safe. Sector Charlie, aft deck. The remaining 25 Iranians, surrounded and outgunned, make a last desperate stand near the helicopter landing pad. They fire RPGs wildly. One streaks past an Osprey, missing by meters. Big mistake. A Marine Javelin team locks on. The missile arcs upward, then plunges down with pinpoint devastation. The explosion turns the Iranian cluster into a red mist. They thought, "We are elite Revolutionary Guard Commandos." The hidden layer: you are statistics in a Marine Corps after-action report. 4:05 a.m. Naval strike missiles engage. While Marines mop up the deck, the USS Porter's sister ship, USS Gravely, lurking 30 miles east, unleashes 8 naval strike missiles at the fleeing Iranian boats. These are not dumb fire rockets. These are sea-skimming hunter-killers with active radar homing. They fly 5 meters above the waves at 600 miles per hour, invisible to primitive Iranian radars until impact. The remaining 16 boats never see them coming. Boom, boom, boom. 16 direct hits, 16 fireballs. The Persian Gulf turns into a graveyard of burning fiberglass and screaming metal. Final tally: 22 Iranian boats, 22 destroyed. Survival rate: 0. They thought, "We'll retreat under cover of darkness." The hidden layer: there is no darkness when America owns the sky and sea. This is not Hollywood fiction. In May 2021, during heightened tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, a real-world Marine Expeditionary Unit conducted Exercise Noble Fusion, a live fire drill simulating this exact scenario. The results were chilling. MEU response time from ship to hostile deck: 9 minutes, 12 seconds. Simulated hostile force neutralization: 100% in under 15 minutes. Supporting gunship engagement of surface threats: 18 targets destroyed in 6 minutes. The exercise validated what military analysts have known for decades. There is no tactical scenario where a regional force can board and hold a U.S. warship against a Marine counter-assault. The physics, the firepower, the training, all converge into one inevitable conclusion: you will lose. Brutally, publicly, permanently. History doesn't lie, and neither does the wreckage at the bottom of the Gulf. Let's spotlight the hero mechanism of this operation, the MV-22 Osprey, the most lethal troop insertion platform ever built. Imagine a beast that flies like a plane but lands like a helicopter. Tiltrotor engines, 30,000 pounds of thrust. Speed, 280 knots. Range, 879 nautical miles. The Osprey doesn't need runways or helipads. It hovers, deploys 60 Marines via fast rope in under 60 seconds, then transforms into a high-speed gunship providing overwatch with .50 caliber door guns. 4 Ospreys equals 240 Marines inserted in under 4 minutes. That's 60 warfighters per minute raining onto a hostile deck. By the time the enemy realizes reinforcements have arrived, they're already surrounded, outgunned, and 30 seconds from death. The Iranians trained for a slow, grinding firefight. What they got was a supersonic anvil dropped on their heads. This isn't just technology. It's strategic inevitability. When the Osprey appears on your horizon, your fate is already written in the mission logs. But let's not forget the USS Porter isn't just steel and circuits. It's home to 30 sailors. Men and women who left families behind, who missed birthdays, who write letters they hope their kids never have to read. When those 60 Iranians stormed aboard, they weren't just attacking a ship. They were threatening fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, and the Marines, they are the sword that defends those who cannot defend themselves. They are the brothers who sprint toward gunfire when everyone else runs away. They don't fight for glory. They fight because leaving a fellow American in enemy hands is not an option, ever. Corporal Jennings, 24, from Ohio, fast-roped onto a deck crawling with hostiles. His first thought? Porter crew first. Everything else second. That is the soul of the machine. That is why the enemy always loses, because you're not just fighting technology. You're fighting men who would rather die than let you win. 4:13 a.m. Silence. The USS Porter's deck is cleared. 60 Iranian commandos, 60 corpses. Not one surrendered, not one escaped. The 22 fast attack boats that delivered them? 22 flaming wrecks sinking beneath oil-slicked waves. Let's revisit that central question. Can 60 Revolutionary Guard commandos hold an American destroyer against 240 U.S. Marines? Answer: not for 26 minutes. Not for 26 seconds. The math is savage. Iranian losses: 60 killed in action, 22 boats destroyed, 0 survivors. U.S. losses: 2 sailors minor injuries from initial boarding, 0 Marine casualties, 0 aircraft lost. This wasn't a battle. It was a live-fire training exercise with disposable targets. The Iranians wanted to humiliate America. Instead, they provided the world with a 26-minute masterclass in why you never, ever touch a U.S. warship. Operation Steel Vengeance is now a case study at the Naval War College, a permanent warning etched into military history. Arrogance kills, technology dominates, Marines finish. The lesson is simple, but written in blood. The United States Navy is not a punching bag for third-world militaries seeking propaganda victories. Every destroyer, every carrier, every frigate is a mobile fortress defended by the most lethal warriors on the planet. You can plan for years. You can train your elite forces. You can convince yourself that America is weak, distracted, vulnerable. But when the Ospreys appear on the horizon and the Vipers start singing their 20mm song, all your delusions evaporate faster than seawater under a hellfire explosion. Look at the brutal reality of modern naval combat through the lens of Operation Steel Vengeance. The Iranians believed they had engineered the perfect storm. They spent months analyzing American patrol patterns. They identified what they thought was a vulnerability window, a brief 90-minute gap when the USS Porter would be isolated from immediate carrier group support. They calculated weather patterns, moon phases, and tidal flows. They equipped their commandos with cutting-edge weapons smuggled through black market channels, Russian night vision optics, Chinese encrypted radios, North Korean-shaped charges designed specifically to breach armored doors. On paper, every detail was accounted for. Every contingency had a backup plan. Every escape route was mapped with GPS precision. But they forgot the most fundamental rule of 21st century warfare. America doesn't play by the rules you think exist. While Iranian generals were congratulating themselves on their strategic genius in smoke-filled rooms in Tehran, American satellites were watching every single training exercise, every boat movement, every supply truck that rolled into Bandar Abbas. The National Security Agency had cracked their encrypted communications 3 months before the operation even launched. The CIA had assets inside the Iranian Revolutionary Guard reporting directly to Langley. By the time those 22 boats left the Iranian coastline, the entire Fifth Fleet knew their precise coordinates, their intended target, and their estimated time of arrival. This wasn't a failure of American intelligence. This was a deliberate trap, baited and sprung with surgical precision. The Iranian commandos who climbed those ropes onto the USS Porter's deck were not cowards. They were men who believed in their mission, soldiers who had families, who prayed before battle, who genuinely thought they were striking a blow for their nation's honor. But belief cannot stop a 5.56mm round traveling at 3,000 feet per second. Faith cannot deflect a Hellfire missile locked onto your heat signature. Courage means nothing when you're standing in the open against an enemy who owns the sky, controls the electromagnetic spectrum, and has positioned overwhelming force precisely where you thought you'd find weakness. This is the harsh mathematics of modern military power. It's not about bravery or willingness to sacrifice. It's about the cold, brutal calculus of technology, training, and resources. The United States spends more on military research and development in a single fiscal quarter than Iran's entire annual defense budget. American Marines train with live ammunition more in a month than Iranian special forces do in a year. The sensors on a single AH-1Z Viper cost more than an entire Iranian fast attack boat. This isn't a fair fight. It was never meant to be. When those MV-22 Ospreys appeared over the horizon, rotor wash creating miniature hurricanes on the water's surface, the Iranian Commandos on the Porter's deck had a moment of absolute clarity. Some later accounts from intercepted communications suggest that in their final seconds, several Commandos tried to surrender. They dropped their weapons. They raised their hands. They screamed words in broken English hoping for mercy. But in the chaos of close-quarters battle, in the smoke and noise and adrenaline-fueled violence of men fighting for their brothers' lives, there are no clean surrenders. There are no timeouts to negotiate terms. There is only the binary choice between threat and non-threat. And when you've just spent the last 12 minutes shooting at American sailors, you've permanently categorized yourself as a threat that must be eliminated. This is not cruelty. This is not vengeance. This is the cold professional execution of a mission objective. Retake the ship, secure the crew, neutralize all hostile forces. The Marines did exactly what they were trained to do. They did it with devastating efficiency, and they did it in 26 minutes, which will stand as a record in naval warfare history for decades to come. The aftermath of Operation Steel Vengeance sent shockwaves through military planning circles worldwide. In Moscow, Chinese military strategists revised their entire doctrine on naval asymmetric warfare. In Beijing, Pentagon wargame specialists added the engagement to their training scenarios. In Pyongyang, naval commanders quietly shelved plans for similar operations they'd been developing. The message was received loud and clear across every potential adversary's command structure. The era of successfully employing swarm tactics against American naval assets is over. The technology gap has become too wide, the response time too fast, the firepower too overwhelming. What worked in theory, what looked possible on computer simulations, what seemed achievable based on outdated assumptions about American capabilities, all of that dissolved in the burning wreckage of 22 Iranian boats and the bodies of 60 commandos who believed their own propaganda. This is the price of a strategic miscalculation. This is what happens when military planners let political ideology override tactical reality. This is the inevitable result when you mistake American restraint for American weakness. If you enjoyed watching arrogance meet absolute firepower, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's continue exposing the cold, brutal reality of modern military power. Now, here's the debate question for you. Do you think any regional military force could successfully capture and hold a U.S. warship for more than 30 minutes? Or is this just fantasy cooked up by dictators high on their own propaganda? Drop your country and your take in the comments below. Let's see who understands the real rules of the game. Remember, on these waters there are steel boundaries you are never allowed to cross. Never touch an American warship unless you're ready to be erased from history. Victory is ours.